Hello, welcome to Big W BBQ. Today we're going to be smoking up a pork shoulder to give us some delicious pulled pork. Before we start preparing the pork, let's talk a little bit about the cut of meat. So what we've got here is a pork shoulder. Sometimes you may have referred to as a Boston butt. They're one and the same. And as you can see here in this diagram, it's coming up from the shoulder of the pig. This part of the hog has a lot of fat and connective tissue intermingled within the meat. Really the best way to eat this meat is after being cooked low and slow. It kind of breaks down all the fat and connective tissue, which makes up for a terrific pulled pork. So with all that being said, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to be working with here today. I've got a little over 6.5 pound pork shoulder here I got from my grocery store. And what we're going to do is we're going to be injecting it with an apple juice, butter, and garlic mix. So as you can tell, we're going to keep it pretty simple here today. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and take the pork out of the packaging, wash it up, and I'll be right back here with you. I went ahead and washed the pork with cold water and then patted it dry with paper towels. So we're just about ready here to start preparing. One thing that you can expect here is once the cook is all done, you will have about 40 to 50% less weight than what you have at the very start. And that is primarily because there's a lot of water that this is made up with. As you can tell, there's a lot of fat and marbling that kind of breaks down, and then you'll see when we get done here that there's actually a bone in there as well. So that all kind of adds up in weight there, and everything just kind of shrinks up because we will be cooking this for a little while. So yeah, I mean, there's something to keep in mind there. As well as how much food an average person will eat. It all depends on the appetite of the people that you have coming over, or as well as how many sides and all that good stuff. But in general, you can expect anywhere from 1/3 to 1/4 pound per person. That's just kind of a ballpark, just to give you an idea of how much meat you need to prepare. So yeah, with that all being said, let's go ahead and prepare this meat. So first we're going to start with applying the rub, and then we're going to do the injection second. So the reason why I'm going to be doing it in that order is because when you're applying the rub, you know you're kind of twisting and turning the meat all around to make sure you get a good coverage there. You're going to end up losing a lot of the liquid. So that's going to be our last step right before we take it out to these. So I'm going to go ahead and use yellow mustard here. All this is going to be using is just a binding agent, I guess, for the rub. You won't taste the flavor or anything like that with the final product, but yeah, just kind of something to give the rub a stick to. So go ahead and give that a good coating. And go ahead and add on quite a bit of rub. This is a pretty thick cut of meat here, as you can tell, so it can handle quite a bit of rub there. You don't have to worry about over seasoning too much there. So just go ahead and give it a good coating. Make sure you get all the sides here. You'll notice that on one side here that you're going to see a fat cap, and you don't have to do too much trimming there. I mean, if it looks overly thick, you can, but this one here looks pretty good. And so all I'm going to do is I'm just going to score it a little bit, just to give the rub something to kind of sit down in as it cooks. And as we cook, this is actually going to be sitting up a smoker. So the reason why we're going to do that is so the fat can kind of, as it kind of breaks down, it's going to sink down into the meat there. Do the same thing on top here with the mustard. Alrighty, that looks pretty good. So now we're going to go ahead and work with the injection. And the injection here I've got is a apple juice, butter, and garlic mixture. We've got 1/2 stick of butter, 1/2 cup of apple juice, 2 teaspoons brown sugar, and 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. Just kind of cook that up on the stove a little bit so we get it all mixed together very well, and then we let it cool for a few minutes here. So yeah, we're just going to go ahead and start injecting the pork. So when you're injecting a piece of meat, there isn't a real science to it. Basically what you're gonna do is you're just gonna poke a hole and you're gonna pull out and slowly inject the fluid. You don't wanna do it too fast, because if you do, it'll spray out and everywhere. And yeah, so you're just gonna kind of poke everywhere around there. You don't wanna go too crazy, because the more holes you have, the more opportunity for moisture to leak out there, but you wanna make sure you get a good coverage. Okay, that should be pretty good there. Now I'm just gonna go ahead and top it off a little bit more here with some rub. All right, should be pretty good. So now let's talk a little bit about how we're gonna be cooking this. I'm gonna be cooking this out on the Weber Smoky Mountain. I have a pit temperature of around 225 to 250. We're gonna be using apple wood as the smoke. And something to keep in mind here, we're not so much going for time as we are the final temperature. We're looking for anywhere from 195 to 205 as the final temperature. Yeah, and you can, rough estimate is probably about an hour per pound here. Yeah, we're just gonna be kind of play by ear and see how it goes. We are working with a large piece of meat. We will eventually hit the stall. I talk a little bit about that up here in my brisket video. Go check that out and get a little more science behind the whole process. Yeah, so when that happens, we're gonna end up wrapping that up in tin foil and for the remainder of the cook. So yeah, it should be pretty straightforward here. We're gonna go ahead and let this sit for about a half hour, 45 minutes while we get the smoker heated up, and we'll be ready to take it out. Stay tuned. So we're out at the grill now. Went ahead and put the shoulder on. We're at about 225 degrees, and I also added a tinfoil pan on the bottom there. There's a lot of good drippings that come down from that, and it's a good addition to the final product there. So definitely recommend that if you have one. So yeah, we're just gonna let this here cook for a while, and after a few hours, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. All right, we're back inside now. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, we're sitting at about 155 degrees. I was kind of monitoring the temperature there a few minutes before we brought it in, and I noticed that we weren't gaining a whole lot of ground there, so I think we definitely hit the stall. So this is always a good time to go ahead and bring it in and wrap it up in tin foil if you'd like. I do want to make a quick note here that it's totally optional to use the tin foil. The reason why I like to use it is it locks in the heat and the moisture, and it kind of gives it a little bit of a steaming effect to help tenderize the meat. Like I said, totally optional. The other alternative is to go ahead and leave it out there just as is. It'll cook just as well. Might take a little bit longer, but it'll give it a little bit crispier bark, which a lot of people do like. So it's totally up to you. Either way works, but for this round, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it in tin foil. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to add a little bit of apple juice to help with the steaming effect. Sure, wrap it up nice and tight. You want to get a good snug fit there. And notice that we're going to leave the fat cap on top throughout the cook. And just for good measures, let's do one more. All right, that should be pretty good. So now this is a good time to go ahead and refill your water pan if you have one. Reload the charcoal, kind of get that all prepped up there, and we're gonna go ahead and put this back out, and it's gonna remain wrapped for the remainder of the cook. And again, we're looking for anywhere between 195 to 205. I think I'm gonna shoot for about 200 degrees there. So yeah, let's go ahead and take it back out to the grill. All right, my friends, I think she's done. So we got an internal temp of 199. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull it off the grill here. And before we do anything with it,
I should just kind of let it sit for an hour, maybe hour and a half. We'll kind of see how things go here, but the idea is to kind of let it cool and let the juices reabsorb and all that good stuff there. So yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and put it off to the side.
The pork shoulder has been resting here on the counter for about an hour and a half. I left it completely wrapped for an hour, and then the last half hour I just went ahead and opened it and let it cool down because it is still really hot. And so as we shred this here, it's going to be a little bit easier when it's just a little bit cooled down there. So yeah, we got the finished product here. One tip I'd recommend is having a lipped pan underneath, because there's going to be a lot of juice. I can already see quite a bit. It's already coming out. So yeah, just something to keep in mind there. And then I would have 2 bowls or 2 plates, whatever. I would have one for your discards and then one for the actual good pulled pork there. So yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and dig in. I'm just going to be using 2 forks here. There are extra accessories, I guess, called bear claws that you could use. I personally have never used them, so I'm not sure how well they work. But forks work just good enough for me, so that's kind of what I use for now. So yeah, let's go ahead and start taking this apart. First, I'm gonna get rid of all this tin foil here. So you can see here, we got pretty good color on it. Here's the downfall of using the tin foil, I guess, is, I mean, the bark isn't very, crisp, but still looks good, and sure it'll taste great as well. But yeah, so then what we kind of do, I guess one thing here is you'll see the bone right here. You can probably wiggle this out. That's kind of an internal thermometer, I guess. If you can completely remove that without much trouble, things are probably done there. So looks good here to me. There's no wrong or right way to do this. You just basically tear it off and then just start shredding it. I don't know if you can see this here in the camera or not, but we got a pretty good smoke ring there. Things are really juicy as of right now, so can't wait to try this here. You got any excess fat here, no sense in eating it unless you like it, but I normally just go ahead and pull it back here. This is the fat cap that we were working with earlier. Let's go ahead and grab this and toss this. Something to keep in mind here, depending on whether or not you think you're going to eat up all of the meat here. If you are, I mean, go ahead and tear it all apart. But I have found that it stores a little bit better if you leave it in a chunk. You can throw it in the freezer and it lasts for a couple months, and then you can just thaw it and cook it back up. But that kind of helps keep the moisture to it. And yeah, it's a little bit better, I guess, after it thaws out. So something to keep in mind. I don't know if I can go much longer without trying some of this. Let's get a little sample. It's terrific. Very good. There's a lot of moisture there. That's going to be some good eating. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and leave the rest of that there put together. And go ahead and look at what we got here. Everything looks great. We've got some great color in there. One of the nice things about these pork shoulders is you get a good mix of white and dark meat there. So the color looks great. But so there's a couple different things you can do here with this pulled pork. It depends on what your preference is. You can go ahead and just load up barbecue sauce straight in here and mix it all up. However, I personally like to leave it as is. And that way, depending on the person, I mean, some people may like barbecue sauce, some may not, and they can go ahead and add as much or as little barbecue sauce as they prefer there. So that's kind of my preference there. As of ways to eat it, I mean, this is good just as is if you just want to eat straight meat. But I personally like to put it on a bun here and have a little sandwich, which I will be preparing here shortly. Before I go ahead and get this served up, one other thing I like to add is I like to add a little more rub to the finished product here. This gives a little more flavor. And another thing, like I mentioned earlier, is you can add those drippings back in, or if you want, apple juice as well to give it a little more moisture there. So yeah, once you add the rub in there, you can go ahead and mix it up a little bit. All right, once you got that all mixed up, go ahead and grab yourself a sandwich bun. Load up the good stuff here. Go ahead and load up your favorite barbecue sauce. And something that is common down in the southern states is adding coleslaw to your sandwich, and I have to admit, it's pretty tasty. So if you haven't tried it, I definitely recommend giving it a shot sometime. Yeah, you just kind of load it up on top there. Perfect. It's a good looking sandwich right there. Let's go ahead and try it out. The pork is very good. It's got a lot of flavor, a lot of moisture to it. Yeah, man, so overall it's some good stuff there. If you're someone with a strong willpower and can resist the urge of not finishing off the entire shoulder there, you may have quite a bit of leftovers there. And keep an eye out here in a week or so. I'm going to have an additional video here, different varieties of what you can do with some leftover pulled pork there, and I mean it's good. It's good every time. So in the meantime, I'd like to hear from you guys and hear the different variations that you like to eat pulled pork with. As always, I greatly appreciate you taking the time and supporting me here. If you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear from you. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up and consider subscribing. If you're not real big into YouTube and you prefer Facebook, I do have a page out there that you can like, and I'll be sure to keep updating that with the new videos as they come out. Thanks again, guys. Have a great one.